let me say that, on these stupid attacks on the Greeks for being lazy. I mean, this is a country which was wrecked by the Second World War. Wrecked. And after the Second World War, many of those who had collaborated with German fascism collaborated with the new system that was being set up. And the civil war in Greece that followed the Second World War crushed the left brutally. In 1947-48, as late as that, Greek militias, backed by the Western governments, were being sent into villages to drag out members of the resistance who had fought with the communist and the non-communist resistance against the fascists. They were being dragged out of their villages. Hundreds of thousands of Greek people left their country to go and work in car factories in Australia. So they're not lazy. In fact, they're rather alert. And today, the Greeks who are the best off are the ones getting their pensions from Australia, because they're not dependent on their own state. And I agree also with you. Of course, the word neoliberal has become meaningless in a sense. What we're talking about is the latest form of capitalism, which has functioned largely through financialization, excessive dependence on financialization, excessive dependence on the use of fictitious capital, no money, fake money to make more money, a housing bubble that was constructed on the basis of this financialization, which broke in the United States and which is now broken in Spain. And the financial press was saying about Spain, not so long ago, 8, 9 years ago, the Financial Times, The Economist, was saying about Spain, the Spanish bull is very vibrant, unlike the dying lions of old Europe. This was the bull. This was the economy which was going to show the way forward, and that economy is in a state of collapse, because Spain is now in an extremely serious state, with between 25 to 30% of young people out of work, with some cities not being able to afford to pay its municipal workers, who are cleaning sometimes the streets free, just so they can live in a halfway decent environment. That is the situation Europe is in, and in this situation, the European elites have not understood the scale of the problem. They just haven't understood it.
No, I would just like to support what you said about bubble, house bubble, and so on, that I'm almost getting paranoid here. First, I noticed how the countries where the crisis did strike at its harshest were, as a rule, just a couple of months before, celebrated as the most violent, successful. For example, I am this elephant with mean, evil memory. I remember Iceland. 2 months before outbreak, a respected Slovene economist advised our phone company, because there were international bidders who will take it over, privatization and so on, to accept the Iceland offer, claiming this is a stable, secure country, do this. Then we have Egypt. I remember, I have mean memory, 1 month before the outbreak, there were big news in the economies there, and IMF, that Egypt is showing signs of progress and so on and so on. Not to mention Tunis, which was all the time the darling and so on. So it's very weird how it's not in some marginal, impoverished countries. The crisis explodes precisely in the countries which are picked out as the models. Greece, I think, is also very interesting to date as a study of the rhetorics, of narratives of those in power. Look at our predominant media. What narratives do we read about the Greek crisis? First, it's the, let's call it, although I wouldn't blame only Germans, the German technocratic narrative. Lazy Greeks, living from Europe. Now when the bill arrives, they don't want to pay it, lazy Greeks and so on. And when I was in Germany, this may amuse you. I even engaged, I like sometimes to go as low as to accept the disgusting racist topic. I told them, okay, let me go down to your level. Greeks lazy. Sorry, but if you even start to think at this, you know, race is problematic, what is the majority of Greece? Mountains with not enough soil and so on. To survive there, sorry, you have to work a lot. It's, if I may put it in these obscene terms, it's geologically not a lazy country. But okay, not really. What I want to say is that this is the first. The second discourse is also false. A certain defense of Greece, which takes, I think, a wrong nationalist turn. We Greeks are now the victim of Europe. This is the second German occupation, and so on and so on. This sound, you know, first was Hitler occupation, now it's financial occupation. It sounds nice, but it avoids the problem, which is that precisely Greece is not just a singular case of a victim out there. Greece is what in educated political philosophy we call the universal exception. It appears as an exception, but it's a model, it's the te fabula narratur. It's a model for us all. Capitalism, global capitalism is in a crisis, and it, as it were, tests spontaneously different models. Like Greece is a kind of a rabbit where they are testing the model of systematically turning a country into a third world country, dismantling the whole welfare state, imposing a de facto suspending democracy, and so on and so on. This is the point. And the third one, I warn you about this one, don't underestimate it. The third rhetoric, the most disgusting for me, the charity human suffering rhetoric. All of a sudden, Western media discovered, about half a year ago, even less I would say, that people in Greece suffer. My God, there are children who don't have enough medicines and so on. And I warn you, there will be soon maybe humanitarian actions, like save a Greek child, drink for the price of 2 cappuccinos, you can make a difference, and so on and so on. Sorry, no, Greeks are not suffering. They are, but they are fighting. And to treat them like this is the most disgusting. But now, my conclusion, believe it or not, even I stop at some point. Would you agree with this? Here, I will give now a very sensitive advice, which maybe will cost me again the insult of being totalitarian secretly or what, but I like very much what the two of you, especially you, said about elections. Yes, up to a point, we should respect elections, blah, blah. But you know, especially in an open situation like this, where you don't get a conclusive answer by electoral machinery alone. It is crucial, to be very brutal and clear, to retain a strong popular mobilization and pressure, inclusive of certain forms of violence, not violence of killing people, but violence of occupying public spaces, bringing normal flow of things to an end, which would prevent the type of manipulations that you, Tariq, hinted at. This kind of unprincipled, under pressure coalition, and so on and so on. Here is a clear case for me of how all the solution will not simply come from electoral process. An additional popular pressure is needed. And I know we will be accused here of undemocratic pressure. I'm not afraid of it, because let's be clear, the message, important message of Occupy Wall Street, we tend to forget that it was a double message. The message is not only, and this is already a great message, you know, till now mass protests were mostly one-issue protest against war in Iraq, against racism, blah, blah. This is something new in the developed West. This is a mass movement whose insight is basically that there is some structural, deep structural flaw in the capitalist system as such. And point two, this is also what people don't like to hear, that the way democracy that we have today, the institutionalized democratic system, is not strong enough to deal with the ongoing. This is not a call for totalitarianism. This is just a warning that if we don't invent new forms of democratic self-organization pressure, then totalitarianism will come. You know that. We have capitalism with Asian values, which has nothing to do with Asia. It's just a poetic expression of authoritarian system, which is coming nearer and nearer. Now we have in Hungary capitalism with Hungarian values. We are already capitalism with Italian values, somewhere between Berlusconi and Monti, and all around Europe, this type of values are waiting. So would you agree or not that this is a clear case of how, without any illusion of direct Leninist takeover, of where democracy alone cannot do the job, an additional pressure is needed?